Well, greetings, folks. I'm honored to be here. So I'll be talking about psilocybin, but just to get this out front, I just received my DEA license for psilocybin. I passed my background checks, who knew? But seriously, long ago I adopted the motto, nature provides, I don't. I consider these to be very potent and serious medicines, and they're critically important for our time. I have my disclosures here. I own a company. I founded it. I'm the sole owner, 145 employees. And I just recently co-founded Mycomedical Life Sciences. In fact, my co-founder, Dr. Pam Crisco, and Dr. Sanjay Dubey, our Chief Medical Officer. Will you please stand up so people can see you? Thank you so much. I have numerous patents. Actually, I have 2 more patents that just issued in the past week. I've written numerous books on psilocybin mushrooms. I cannot separate my avocation and my vocation. This is my life's work. So it's important to look at the historical record with echoes from archaeology going over back thousands of years. And this is difficult to document, but it's the artists that carry these messages forward that putatively are signals of psilocybin mushroom use. It really came to the forefront when R. Gordon Wasson and Valentina Wasson discovered Maria Sabina, the Mazatec shaman in Oaxaca, Mexico. And Maria Sabina was not only a shaman, she was a mycologist, and so was Valentina Wasson. These 2 great women sort of led the charge in the reawakening of the use of psilocybin mushrooms. So there are a lot of psilocybin mushrooms, over 140 known species. Since the 1800s, over 5,682 collections. They're circumpolar. They're all over the world, existing literally in every landscape except for Antarctica, not yet. I want to give tribute to my older brother, John, who went to Yale, and he inspired me after stories in Mexico and Colombia eating magic mushrooms. And he brought back this book, Altered States of Consciousness, which was amazing to me. And my mother, and I point this out because 45 years ago, I published my first book on psilocybin. And I had a DEA license in 1978 under Dr. Michael Bugh at the Evergreen State College. I want to give tribute also to my father, my brother John, who I mentioned, and my mother. My father taught me about science. My brother John was my inspiration. My mother taught me about kindness and courage. My mentors, Dr. Daniel Stuntz, Kit Skates, Dr. Michael Bugh, and Dr. Alexander Smith, all of whom have passed away except for Michael, but these people were instrumental in adopting me at a very young age, about 19 or 20 years of age. I went on to publish numerous new species of psilocybin mushrooms, and just this past week, I was honored with a new species named Psilocybe stametsii that was named after me. It's a great honor in the field of mycology to have a species named after yourself. So the mushroom life cycle is very not complicated. Spores germinate into mycelium, mycelium grows, and is triggered into mushroom formation. So the mycelium has nuclei that conducts through the networks and through the end tips of the mycelium. There can be more than 8 miles of cells in a single cubic inch. And this causes epigenesis that then codes for new solutions to environmental problems. There are Psilocybe cyanescens, a very common wavy cap psilocybin mushroom, which typically the psilocybin mushrooms bruise bluish. We started in a series of conferences. This is, in a sense, a continuation of these in the late 1970s. Because I had a DEA license, I had the cover to be able to accept specimens, and so under the umbrella of legal protection, we had confidence that we could then sponsor these events. Then a great voice in the psilocybin movement was the late Terence McKenna. His book, The Psilocybin Magic Mushroom Growers Guide, was really the book that set this interest on fire, so to speak. Conferences continued all the way into Amsterdam, and in the center is Albert Hofmann, Sasha and Ann Shulgin, there's myself there. But there's a continuity of knowledge here that's passed over the generations. Now mushrooms are having their moment, so to speak. It's become the zeitgeist of our time. But I also know some of the cultural heroes, Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters. They were good friends of mine. I'm officially a Merry Prankster. But he had many people coming up to him trying to asking him to identify psilocybin mushrooms. So he gravitated to me because I'm an expert in that field and in taxonomy. So the most commonly used psilocybe mushroom in the world is Psilocybe cubensis. Maria Sabino used Psilocybe zavaticorum. But Psilocybe cubensis is the mushroom that is being used widely throughout the world, and it's the most commonly consumed mushroom. So I want to point out a few meta-surveys, because the meta-surveys can inform clinicians about the possibility of doing clinical trials. Here's 485,000 inmates that were surveyed. A one-time use of psilocybin, statistically significant decreased odds in crime, larceny, property crime, and violent crime. Well, that was interesting. Another study came out, 1,266 community members. A one-time use of psilocybin, the only psychedelic in the survey, statistically a significant reduction of partner-to-partner violence. Make note of this, please. And then association between classic psychedelics and opioid use. Only one psychedelic was associated with a statistically significant reduction in opioid use disorder, and that was psilocybin. And a more recent study, and this is something that all of us psychonauts, as we're known as, know very, very well. Under the influence of psilocybin, you relate to nature. Much like the astronauts going to the moon or in the space shuttle, you look back on the Earth and you realize how precious this ecosystem is, how important it is to protect. So it's called nature relatedness. There have been numerous clinical trials, especially in using psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression, and a more recent one for the reduce of alcohol binging, alcohol use disorder. These are double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. So the fact that now we have a lot of clinical studies happening, look at this, physicians and other medical experts here. 120 universities have registered at clinicaltrials.gov on using psilocybin. Think about going through the IRB boards. Think about how many physicians and consultants. These have been approved because there's a high probability of success, low risk, and there's not current medicines that can adequately treat the targeted diseases that they are using psilocybin for. But there's a problem with these high-dose psilocybin studies. I could not say better than this cartoon. How do you... The placebo is unblinded within about 20 minutes. So what's the use of a placebo in a double-blind placebo-controlled study if the people who are tripping know it and the people who aren't tripping also know it, right? So Dr. Roland Griffiths, who is a pioneer, and he led the charge at Johns Hopkins, still does. He published an article that then really opened up the floodgates of other researchers to follow. And in this article, he is advocating with his co-authors the rescheduling of psilocybin from Schedule 1, which has no medical use and a high potential for addiction, to a Schedule 4. Now, I would wager, I normally ask, when I can ask this really quickly, how many people in this audience have not done psilocybin? This is the greatest number of people who have ever raised their hands when I've asked this question. Those of us who done high doses of psilocybin, to let you know, the next day you look at the mushrooms and you say, no way, I'm not touching those for months. They are anti-addictive by their very nature. These are not substances of abuse. Now there's over 23 states. Delaware has a new bill now that have bills that have bills or ballots, and in Colorado and in Oregon, now it's become law. The therapeutic use of psilocybin has been allowed. In Canada, there's a major movement as well. So there are multiple active tryptamines, and psilocybin is the prodrug for psilocin. Psilocybin dephosphorylates upon ingestion due to the enzymes in your stomach. Psilocin docks with the neuroreceptors. Psilocin is a serotonin agonist, so it substitutes temporarily for serotonin, your major neurotransmitter. We were involved, Dr. Pam and I, in helping construct an app at microdose.me to be able to do a survey of microdosers. Now, a definition of microdosing is subsensorium. You don't feel an effect. So in this case, a placebo double-blind controlled study would be valid, in my opinion, because the participants cannot tell whether they took the placebo or the microdose of psilocybin. So at this app for the Apple and the Droid, there's a number of challenge tests. All of these are validated tests that psychiatrists use currently today. And they survey, what are you taking, how much are you taking, and what are you combining it with? Are you combining it with lion's mane, niacin, chocolate? Niacin is used as also one of the active placebos in many of these studies. But it too, in 20 minutes, you hot flush, you get red, so many of these patients also can detect the placebo being niacin. But I have a different view towards niacin. So we surveyed, we had over now 20,000 people that have responded. And in my discussions with Dr. Pam, because so many of these tests of depression and anxiety are subjective, I asked her, well, isn't there a psychomotor test that would be independent of expectancy? And yes, there's a finger tapping test. Many of you physicians know about this for traumatic brain injury, TBI, for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. How rapidly can you tap your two fingers in rapid succession, or one finger in 10 seconds? So numerous clinical studies use this to measure progression of dementia or neurodegeneration. So we put this finger tapping test into our app. So microdosing, in our survey, we found about 8% of them use what's the equivalency of 1 to 3 milligrams of psilocybin, or one third to 1/10 of a gram of psilocybin mushrooms. The psilocybin mushrooms have about 1%. So a large cohort of these people were using truly a microdose. Another mushroom that's commonly used is also Psilocybe mexicana. This is known as truffles in the Netherlands. It's sort of misnamed, but that makes up for the other 10% or so, or 5% of the users of magic mushrooms. There are two protocols that are very popular. James Fadiman and our best friends. He has the Fadiman protocol. You use microdosing 1 day, 2 days off, and the next day you dose. The dosing regimen I came up with was 4 days continuous and then 3 days as a break. We don't know. James and I talked, we just made these up. But we both believe that we need to watch the receptors in order to reset, so the neuroreceptors don't normalize to the stimulus. We want the endogenous system to work. So I came up with a Stamets stack around 2015. And I thought, well, interesting, because psilocybin and psilocin is a vasoconstrictor, niacin is a vasodilator. Neuropathies oftentimes present themselves as a deadening of the fingertips and the toes, and the endpoints of the peripheral nervous system. And so if we have better vascular delivery of psilocybin, then that would help, I would believe, neurogenesis. And then I also combine it with lion's mane, which is a very, very popular nutraceutical mushroom. There are 4 clinical trials that use lion's mane, which have very strong evidence in helping patients fight dementia or slow dementia, as well as some early indications in helping Alzheimer's patients. Lion's mane contains a compound, the mycelium does, aronacines, that causes remyelination on the axons of the nerves. My hypothesis was psilocybin causes neurogenesis and new tips to grow, and neuroplasticity with cross-hatching. And the remyelination, of course, is a problem with Alzheimer's and many other types of degenerative neuropathies. We went ahead and we published in Nature Scientific Reports, and this was a survey of 3,486 patients. This was more of a qualitative survey. But we also, with people's motivations for why they were microdosing. But we started getting some signal. And the signal that we got for using the stack with more than 8,000 participants in this part of the survey was dramatically improvement of mood and reduction of depression. So we went on to publish another paper in Nature Scientific Reports, and then we started to disambiguate the data sets. And we wanted to look at specifically things that were not subjective, that could demonstrate a psychomotor benefit, that would be outside of expectancy with a so-called quote-unquote placebo. And we found something truly extraordinary. This is the TAP test that I referred to, and this is in 55-plus-year-olds. We saw no signal below the age of 55. We all suffer from neurodegeneration, neuropathy as we age. And with the 55-plus-year-olds using the stack, compared to psilocybin in any other form, but the stack of niacin, lion's mane, and psilocybin, the microdosing ranges that I described, a significant increase of 48 to 68 taps in 10 seconds in 30 days, with a p-value of 0.005. There's 1 chance in 250 that this is random. Wow. When I saw this, I go, okay, what's the mechanisms of action? So I started delving into it. I tasked my scientists, let's survey the literature on preclinical drugs that lead to neurogenesis, and let's see what the best tests are that are out there. We focused in on TrkA receptors. These are MAP kinases, TrkA, B, and C. And they code for enhancing and facilitating BDNF and nerve growth factors that then stimulate newborn neurons or existing neurons to regenerate. TrkB in particular is the most exciting to us. So we started looking at the synergy of the individual psilocin by itself, niacin by itself, and the particular additive sum that you see in the third bar, red and blue. When we combined these, beyond expectancy of the additive sum, we had synergy. We had a massive increase in the facilitation of the binding of BDNF and nerve growth factors to causing nerves to be stimulated into growth. So then we looked at, okay, well, let's combine all three of them. And then we came to a new term of art that I did not know in science called the maximum calculated value. This is where the erinacines from the lion's mane mushrooms, the psilocin and the niacin had no activity in increasing binding with TrkAs, but together they had synergy. This is the analogy of gunpowder, charcoal, sulfur, potassium nitrate. It's a gating item for composition patents with a patent office for natural products. Unexpected increase. Most scientists, they would see one of these things have no activity, they would move on, saying, okay, no activity there. We were able to show synergy. And then we were able also to show synergy with TrkBs. Again, maximum calculable value. An article just recently published in Cell, 21 co-authors found a massive increase in TrkB, looking at antidepressive drugs, minor and major antidepressive drugs. The mode of action for most of these depressants that have been already on the market is activating the TrkB site. We think we have found something here truly significant. When we looked at then some of the analogs, the other compounds, norpsilocin, we're looking at JAK-A. These also codes for antiviral proteins and the endogenous antiviral system that we have for fighting viruses. And it stimulates also interleukin-10s, which are neuro-anti-inflammatories. So when you combine neurogenesis with a neuro-anti-inflammatory, it's truly unique in medicine from what I understand. So the bottom line hypothesis is that niacin, I'm sorry, the slide got duplicated here. Niacin is a catalyst for neurogenesis. It has vasodilation, and lower doses of psilocybin and related tryptamines can be beneficial. This entourage synergy, I believe niacin is a catalyst, not to be used opposite psilocybin in clinical studies, but to use in combination. For those of you who have patents, when you have experts teaching away from your invention, it increases patentability. So it's wonderful. 11 clinical studies are using niacin opposite psilocybin as an active placebo. So how are these commonly used? Well, the most popular method is to make chocolates. So you make the Stamets stack, for instance, into a chocolate, and then you put your chocolates in the refrigerator. By the way, you want to label them. If you put the word laxative on them, it's usually a pretty good thing. So as an adversant for your children, I mean, no children want to take a laxative. So, but please, seriously, you should be very, very careful with how these are kept and they're stored. So I believe that this is a potential breakthrough in medicine for neurogenesis, neuroregeneration, neuroplasticity. We all suffer from neuropathies. We all suffer from neurodegeneration. We have come to a nexus point in time where our descendants in the future are calling back to us, looking at what we are doing today, because the ramifications of our activity will echo throughout time. And moreover, because there's such a strong association, and one clinical study after another are proving that these medicines are game changers for treating a wide array of mental health issues. We are losing the body intellect of our society as we age. We are losing Einsteins every day because of dementia, and Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and other diseases. We need to preserve the neurological health of our elders so they can pass this down to the next generation. I believe psilocybin reduces crime. I believe psilocybin reduces violence. I believe psilocybin makes nicer people. I believe that psilocybin increases intelligence. I want to thank my co-researchers at my company. This is a concerted effort. I come up with these ideas, and I give them their marching orders, and they're incredibly inspired, be on the cutting edge of research. And so I'm glad we're showing Einstein. How many Einsteins are we losing? How many young Einsteins that we need to preserve their intellect? How many people can become Einsteins if they have good neurological health? Einstein said it well. It's a leap in consciousness, and you must be aligned with your spiritual nature. This is a potential game changer. Psilocybin could become a nootropic vitamin that could be used across the population. It could literally change the course of human history. These are medicines anciently discovered, revered, and protected by indigenous peoples. We have their wisdom and modern science today to be able to take these medicines for maximum public benefit. I believe psilocybin is a scientific breakthrough. Thank you very much. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Ronnie.